Blog Talk Radio.
Oh, it's time to get real. Oh, yeah. It's a new experience. Spirituality. Yeah, keep your ears open for this one now. Spirituality. You got a question for RLN? Spirituality. Yeah, it's time to get some answers, baby. Spirituality. Oh, now we get real. Yeah, it's time to get down. Yeah, you gonna feel good now. Get real good. That's what I'm talking about. Time to get real.
Welcome, everyone. Welcome to Reality Spirituality. I'm your host, Global Happiness Specialist and Inner Peace Practitioner, Oracle Teacher, Student of the Universe and its laws. Thank you so much for listening to the show, sharing the show. I'm getting a lot of new followers. Welcome, welcome one, welcome all. Happiness Specialist, who the hell, what the hell, who does she think, how the... Those are some of the questions I get. It's so interesting. I'm speaking to one-on-one, having conversations with people a lot more lately. If you've listened to the show, you know the show now is sponsored by the OWL app. And it's an app you can go on, you can download it for free. And so I'm talking to a lot more people all across the country that are, quite frankly, looking for, searching for, seeking this feeling, this peace, this what are we really looking for? What are we really searching for? And I contend that this global success with titles and money and prominence and fame and whatever, numbers, the real search, scratch the we, what I was looking for. Let me speak for myself. When I was younger, I wanted two things. I wanted to live to my potential, and I wanted to be happy. And so this seeking, wanting, searching for this happiness for decades now, for almost four decades, has brought me to this present moment, which the discovery is exciting. Happiness is a practice skill. And so what that means is if I can practice it, you can practice it. And what is a priority in your life? Some people have different priorities. Let me just back up a little bit. You know, I get shot out of a cannon. I have so much to share that sometimes it's just overwhelming. Let me just share my definition of happiness. My definition of happiness is the ability to vibrate the energy of peace, regardless of what's happening, regardless of any external things that are happening, and regardless of what's not happening. The ability to vibrate peace, regardless of what life throws at you. And life throws at you the same thing that it throws at me: death, health, finance, relationships, challenges. Life throws at me the same things. We are all challenged on a daily basis. And with those challenges, I'm going to ask you a question. What are the biggest problems that this world faces today? Is it poverty? Is it disease? Is it hunger? Is it overpopulation, wars, religion, global warming, animal rights? What are the biggest challenges that the world faces today? Well, I contend that it's a lot of really unhappy, unpeaceful people, period. Am I right? Who knows? But that's what I contend. Because the vibration, whatever you are vibrating in any single moment, is what you are contributing to this planet in any single moment. So if you're vibrating sadness, anger, resentment, annoyance, any of those vibrations, and I'm only putting labels on it just so you can understand where I'm coming from. Whatever you're vibrating is your contribution. And when I say I'm a happiness specialist, let me just share with you. When I say happiness, happiness is a vibration. It is a vibration of feeling satisfaction in every moment. Not dissatisfaction in every moment. Not wanting more is a vibration of satisfaction in every moment. Is that possible? It is possible when you commit and you prioritize peace and or happiness. It's the same thing, the vibration of contentment, the vibration of being balanced, the vibration of peace. All of it is the same energy. The question becomes, how important is it to you? How important is happiness to you? Well, let me share. I've said this before, and I usually, at the beginning of the show, there's a very famous study. It's called the 5 Biggest Regrets, or the 5 most common regrets of the dying. It was done by a hospice nurse, Bronnie Ware, and she interviewed her terminally ill patients. These people had days to live, weeks to live, months to live. And what were your 5 biggest regrets? Well, there were 5 that kept coming up over and over and over again. Number 1, I wish I didn't work so hard. Number 2, I wish I was able to express my feelings. Number 3, I wish I would live the life that I wanted to live instead of the life that others expected of me. The 4th one is I wish I would have stayed in touch with my friends. And the 5th one is I wish I would have let myself be happier. I wish I would have let myself be happier. And that's where I come in. Bam! Bam! If you ask me, the peace and the happiness, I was going to say there's an order to it, but you know what? Scratch that, because whatever order, there is an order to it. There is an order to it, but I'm not going to pretend to know which order it is, and for each individual. It is different for different people. Priorities, happiness isn't really that important for other people, and that's something that I had to really wrap my head around and accept. That everybody, believe it or not, Rebecca, that everybody doesn't view the world the way that you do and doesn't think that happiness is number 1. And not only that, this lightness or this energy of lightness is actually painful. The quote is that levity or happiness can be painful to some people. And that was a lesson that I learned a month ago. There's always something to learn. There's always something to discover. And where do we discover? We discover all of these lessons, all of these growth. It's in the mirror. Is looking in the mirror, being honest with self, being honest, and let me just say this to my dear audience. That is not your fault. There is a programming that, if you ask me, is one of the main reasons why all of the causes of suffering. It's the programming for the programming. And I discussed a little bit last week with how I was programmed with this romance and relationships and starting off with Cinderella and the television shows and the movies and on and on and on, and how a quote-unquote loving romantic relationship is supposed to look like. Today's topic, which again, this diving into self-discovery, this diving into self, this really doing the digging, the researching, the deep dive, sometimes it's called the deep dive. The discoveries are so liberating and potential. I was going to say more freedom than you could even imagine. And the freedom is a state of mind. The freedom has nothing to do with how much money you have. The freedom is a state of mind, a state in mind, just like happiness is, or peace is a state in mind. It's a vibration. It's an energy. It's an identity. It's a foundation. So let me ask you some questions, either yes or no. And these questions are, what are your challenges in the moment? And then we're going to get to today's topic. Because today's topic, today's topic is not an easy topic. Even though I said, the question is, why, what are the reasons why to eliminate the using the word because? Why I eliminated using the word because. That's today's topic. Last week I asked you, what, if anything, would you change if you knew you only had one more day to live? Last week's topic was, what would you change, if anything, if you knew you only had one day to live, one more day to live? And my answer was, the only thing I would change is I would just drive myself or fly myself to the closest people in my life, my best friend and my son. That's it. I'd be right there, stuck in a chair, sitting, talking, and that would be the only thing that I would change. But that's a good question, and it's a good question because, there we go. There we go. You hear that word because? So let me get right to that topic. Who is the author? Who comes up with the reasons why? Who comes up with the theory, the conclusion? Who comes up with the conclusion of why? Who comes up with the conclusion after using that word because? Now let me just start off by saying this topic, eliminating using the word because, is not happiness 101. It's not happiness 200. This is a more of in-depth. I'm not going to say advanced. That's not really what I want to say. It's more of an in-depth. It's deeper. Okay, that's better. It's deeper. It's a deep topic which requires a lot of excavation, a lot of digging. So one of the reasons why I stopped using the word because is with the other practice. You know, the practice, when I say happiness, is a practice skill. It's like any other skill. The more you commit to the practice, and it is daily, the better the results. So the question that you ask yourself is, are you ready to commit? Are you ready to prioritize vibrating peace, vibrating happiness? And it's the same. It's the same when I say peace, contentment. It's the same vibration. Joy is different than happiness. Happiness is different than joy. It's the vibration is what I'm really focusing on. The energy, the vibration. You know, that one that cannot be shattered. You're standing in the middle of a rowboat. You're standing in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean in a rowboat, and the waves are tossing you and turning you and toppling you, and you are still at peace. That's what I'm talking about, that vibration of being at peace regardless of what happens. So the first part of the practice comes from gradually eliminating the behaviors and also the conversation and the way we communicate that subtracts from happiness, that subtracts from peace. And let me just back up a little bit. One of the biggest subtractors, we all have two entities. There's that ego mind entity, the thoughts that are always coming up with what's wrong with this moment, focusing on what's wrong, judging what's wrong. It's really a lack of acceptance of every present moment. When I say eliminating the word because, the reason why is who gives that answer? Who is responsible for coming up with the reason, coming up with whatever comes up after because? Who is authoring whatever comes after using the word because? Is that a universal? Is that a universal author? Or is that author ego mind? Who determines? Who is responsible for giving me an explanation for why this is happening because I'm angry because? When I allow my ego or my mind to come up with a conclusion, a theory and a conclusion of why something is happening, guess what? I'm giving my power away. Not only am I giving my power away, because my ego, my critical mind, the ones that's always coming up with something wrong in the moment, can only come up with one perspective. My challenge to you, my dear listener, my dear audience member, is when you use the word because, can you come up with more than one story, more than one reason why because? If that makes sense. So let me just give you an example. Getting angry, getting annoyed. If you've listened to the show, one of my things that pushes my buttons or triggers me is if I'm in a store, I'm getting ready to check out. I know it's a little thing, but it's important because it tells it oh my gosh, it's just so me. And we all have our little buttons that are pushed, all of that. And so if I have a button that's being pushed, guess what? It's up to me to eliminate that button. It's up to me. It's my job. It's not for anybody else to change. But let me get back to the story. So I'm in Sprouts yesterday buying my favorite apple pie with no sugar added. And you can only get it at the best one are the ones at Sprouts. Apple pie, no sugar added. I'm in the line. I have one item. The question, first of all, the question, hi, how's your day going? And that question, how's your day going, and if it hits me at 7 o'clock at night, I mean, unless I'm really, I have my head hanging down right now. One of my biggest challenges is noticing other people's lack of awareness. Oh my gosh, it's crazy. Noticing a lack of awareness. Anyway, that's one of my things. And so with all of that, what's my practice? My practice is to accept whether somebody is aware, self-aware, or not. That's on me. It's not on anyone else. But back to the story. So I'm in line, and I have one item, and of course it's always, how's your day going? Did you find everything okay in the store? I mean, the questions just, And I have a story why those questions bother me, because, okay, here we go. The questions bother me because, number one, they're all supposed to say it. You're supposed to ask these questions now. Did you find everything okay? I mean, it is part of a script. And all scripts, I could smell a script from across the country. I'm anti-script, always anti-script. But here we go. When I say all of the answers and all the solutions are found in the mirror, it always comes back to me. When the cashier asked me, I have one item that I put on the belt, one item. Is that everything? Is that all you want, or is that it for you for today? Is that it? Is that all? Is that it? You need anything else? Here we go. Now, I used to say I'm annoyed, bothered, because they asked me a stupid question, or they asked me a question like a robot would ask me, or they asked me a question that was on a script. So those were my reasons why, because I'm irritated. The reason why I'm irritated is, here we go, is because someone is asking me a stupid question, or somebody is reading off of a script and not engaging in real time, looking in my eyes and being real. So, but that's not the reason why I'm irritated. That's not the reason why I get annoyed. That's not the reason why I'm angry. You see why I'm eliminating that word because? So my question is, when a volcano erupts, is it because it's angry? When a volcano erupts, is it because the volcano is angry? Or does a volcano erupt because it's just time for a volcano to erupt? And I use the word because then. But is it just time for the volcano to erupt? So the anger, the labels of anger, sad, depressed, annoyed, guilty, all of those labels, I'm here to tell you, the stories that you tell yourself as to the reason why you are feeling all of that stuff subtracts from your peace, because anything that the ego is involved in, that the ego is authoring, trust me on this, peace is being subtracted. The ego is not about peace in any way, shape, or form. You know that. I know that. There's always an issue. There's always a struggle. There's always a challenge. Hey, the ego doesn't tell me, hey, wow, I'm in the present moment. I'm just so grateful for everything, life itself. I'm grateful for my breath. That's not what the ego's job is. Let me just speak for myself. My ego's job is to make sure that I'm feeling off balance, not connected, not peaceful, consciously depressed, angry, bothered, annoyed, as much as possible. That's the job of my ego. My ego never brings me peace. So the author of the conclusion, because when I'm saying you're allowing, or scratch that I'm allowing the ego to dictate why I'm feeling a certain way. No. And I know it's rampant in today's world. There's always a reason why. There's always a reason because, and it's always very limiting. Because let me ask you this. Can your ego come up with more than one reason why you're angry, you're depressed, you're sad, you're guilty? More than one reason. Or scratch the more than one reason. More than one perspective to flip it, as opposed to feeling angry. Wow, and I can feel grateful. This eliminating using the word because is crippling to the ego. It takes its power away. The ego wants, my ego wants me to believe it knows what and why in every single moment. So unless you're conducting a scientific experiment, and I mean a scientific experiment, the hydrogen atom is not mixing with the oxygen atom because scientific reason. But these other stories as to why I'm feeling a certain way, number one, it's limiting. Number two, the perspectives. Come up with another perspective that's going to flip it. Instead of feeling bad, mad, angry, come up with another perspective that you're going to feel good, that you're going to scratch the feel good, that you're going to feel a different vibration, a lighter vibration. It's very tricky. Who is the author of the reason why? Who is the author of all of the conclusions after using the word because? I don't know about you, but my ego is strong, and it wants me to believe that it knows everything and it knows why. The more you practice taking the power, the more you practice telling the ego or even focusing on the ego's insignificance, meaning the ability for the ego to choose my behavior, my words. I'm not leaving that to my ego, because the outcome is going to be, shout out to Kevin Samuels, the outcome is not going to be productive, is not going to be peaceful. That using the word because, let me give you another example. I was in, they have all these different rooms now, from Fireside to Wisdom to Clubhouse, all these different rooms. So I was in a room a few days ago, and there was a gentleman there who, we were talking about forgiveness, and there were actually two gentlemen, and they just said they struggled with that concept of forgiveness. And they struggled, and here's the reason. They gave the reason because, and they gave a lot of reasons because, number one, and I'm talking about life and death. So one gentleman lost his son. I didn't know how old the son was. And one gentleman lost his friend due to violence. So both of these individuals lost people that they loved by the hands of others that are totally unremorseful. This is their explanation, and their explanation and the reason why they can't forgive, because here we go, because I don't see the value in it. I don't see the power in it. I don't want to. I'm not ready to. All of the reasons because they're not interested. Scratch that, not interested. It's just not time. And that's what I shared. If someone has a struggle not being able to forgive and let go, it's not because A, B, C, or D. It's just not time. See, the ego will put up all these different reasons, and the mind will come up with 10 different reasons why. And the truth is, the universal truth is, it's just not time. There's a time for everything. There's a time for everything to evolve. And if something is happening, guess what? It's time for it to happen. And if something is not happening, guess what? It's not time for it to happen. It's simple. But the ego wants more. The ego wants to really know it's because, and I'm here to tell you that all of those stories behind that word because, or all of those conclusions because, just stimulates, empowers, strengthens the ego. And the ego's job is not for you to be at peace, is not for you to have a vibration of satisfaction, is not for you to vibrate feeling grateful in every moment and accepting the present moment. That's not the job of the ego. And we all have experienced the ego at its best, at its highest. I mean, consciously. Now, I've definitely consciously allowed my ego to pop out and dictate sometimes. But I'm going to scratch that too. Scratch what I just said. Yeah, scratch what I just said. I've allowed my ego. No, the unfolding of a moment the unfolding of each moment the practice is to allow, accept every moment to unfold without judgment and or labels. One of the things that my ego wants is to know what's happening in the future. I know this is going to play out, is a knowing. But the practice is, especially if you want to experience more peace and more happiness on this journey, is to embrace and practice uncertainty and not knowing, and being okay not knowing. I don't know about you, but my ego is never at rest when it pretends or pretends when it doesn't know. My ego wants to know all the time. But the practice is letting go and saying, you know what? I don't need to know. And I don't need to know because everything is in order. How about that because? How about that because it's not time? How about this because everything is in order? How about the because life unfolds to serve me in every moment? How about that because, as opposed to because I can't forgive or because I don't think forgiveness is powerful? All of those, you can feel the difference. You can feel the difference in vibration. And let me say something else about this. Whether it's the inability to forgive, the inability to let go of fear, any of that stuff, none of that is in your power anyway. The ego wants me to believe that I'm making it happen or I'm not making it happen. The ego wants me to believe that I have the power that I have the power to put something in the works, that I have the power to make something happen. I know I'm going to get a lot of pushback on that, a lot of angry emails on that one. But unless the universe, God, whatever term you want to use, source, higher power, energy, spirit, whatever term you want to use, if the universe doesn't sign off on all of this activity, you think it's going to happen? If the universe doesn't sign off with the stamp of, okay, approved, you think you can make something happen? I'm not good. That's a topic for another. That's a topic for another show. But let me just get back to that word because. So instead of using, okay, let me just go back to this forgiveness thing because I wanted to take this one topic back with forgiveness and fear and all of it, sadness. There are addictions that are not discussed. There's an addiction to drama. There's addiction to controlling. There's addiction to complaining. There's addiction to sharing bad news. There's an addiction to talking about yesterday. There's an addiction to worrying. There's an addiction to blaming others. There's an addiction to feeling sad. There's an addiction to pointing the finger and saying that someone else is responsible for how you are feeling. I contend, it is my perspective. I didn't even finish my point. So all of those addiction to worrying, addiction to feeling bad, addiction to sharing news, addiction to living in the past, addiction to living in the future. And when you talk about something as deep as fear is, or as deep as the inability to forgive and let go, my question is, I was just thinking, my question is, who would I be? Let's scratch that. Who would I be? How would I feel? Okay, how about this? Let me just, and I don't do hypotheticals, but let me do a really quick hypothetical. What if there was someone that I could not forgive? I mean, come on. There's somebody that I cannot forgive. I'm holding a grudge against. Even the attorney that there is absolutely no one in my life that I hold a grudge, or ill feeling towards. Not one. I don't care what they've done. I don't care how they've treated me. I don't care all of the evidence, and none of it. It's not serving me holding on to baggage or suitcases that are not light. There's a difference between, you can feel the difference between feeling light and feeling heavy. Light, heavy. So, would I feel lighter or would I feel heavier not being able to forgive? Would I be lighter or would I be heavier not being able, holding on to fear? Does it make me lighter or does it make me heavier? And I'm talking about an energy here. Sadness. I mean, I talk to so many people and they talk about feeling heavy. And that's really the bottom line. How do you feel throughout your day? I'm not saying anyone is better than the other. if I had a preference, I like to feel lighter. I like to feel light. But I also know that there are times where that lightness or that feeling that my ego will tell me, oh, I'm not feeling this way, I'm not feeling this way, I'm not feeling light, my ego will tell me that there's something wrong because I'm going to challenge you that when you use that word because, and you come up with a reason, and you come up with a story, giving a reason as to why, pay attention whether or not that story is light, gives off a light vibration or a heavy vibration. Pay attention. You feel lighter or you feel heavier? It's pretty simple. So when you come up with your reasons after the word because, if it's making you feel lighter, hey. But if it's the opposite, all I'm saying is be suspect of the author. The conclusion is, the universal answer is, why is something happening? Why do I feel it this way? Because it's time for me to feel this way. Why do I feel? Because it's time or it's not time. And so the new description of how I'm feeling, it's not even using a word sad, angry, annoyed. I'm feeling this, period. I'm not even going to say like this. I'm feeling this. That's it. I don't need to put a label on it. I don't need to describe it. I'm feeling this in this moment, which is the practice of acceptance, total acceptance of every moment. Is a practice that is going to give you an outcome of more peace, guaranteed acceptance, and paying attention to who's authoring the story after the word because. Oh, we're having a health crisis in this country because that's what I'm talking about. It could be global, it could be national, it could be individual, it could be community, it could be a certain community. Because there is never a single reason for anything happening. But the ego will tell you, the ego will try to trap you into thinking there's only one reason. And I'm here to share that the perspectives, the broadening perspectives, and paying attention to and being aware that using that word because, whatever is after that word, whatever story you're using after that word, because, whatever theory you're coming to, the conclusion you're coming up with, who's the author? Who's the author? Whew. You know what? I forgot to give out the phone numbers to call in. Well, we have 3 people in the queue, and everyone's welcome to ask me questions, just question number 1. But anyway, sometimes these people just like to listen to me talk, or not. Sometimes they hear me talking and they zip, 2-3 minutes, they're out of here. Well, that's the end of today's show. I want to thank you for listening. Reality Spirituality Radio is heard every Sunday at 9 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. And Reality Spirituality is going to be, well, I don't know yet. We're trying to figure out a time for the fireside show. Visit my website at RebeccaNorrington.com. Follow me on Twitter at RLNorrington. LinkedIn, my Instagram handle is Reality Spirituality. YouTube channel is going to be, it's a work in progress. It's going to be updated pretty soon. My first book, RealitySpirituality, The Truth About Happiness, can be purchased on Amazon. And I wrote a chapter in the book I read, which was released on March the 29th, and now is an Amazon bestseller. The book I read is a collaboration of 25 authors sharing their personal stories about which books have profoundly impacted and changed their lives. So the book I read is available on Amazon for $1.99. The second book, the one I'm writing now, Program for Unhappiness, is going to be published sometime this year. Until next week, my dear audience, I want you to remember who the hell you are. You are a physical extension of the universe. Your conscious energy, which is always evolving, always changing, always growing. Love is patient and love is kind. Be patient and be kind to yourself. Be your own best friend. Accept yourself in every moment. Be your own best friend. Remember, you cannot have a happy ending to an unhappy journey. It is about the journey. You've been listening to Reality Spirituality Radio with yours truly, Global Happiness Specialist, Inner Peace Practitioner. Remember, happiness is a practice skill, and I promise you, the more you practice, eliminate that word because, the more peace you will find. Your experience in every moment reflects on what you practice. Have a conscious week. Thank you for listening.
Yeah. Oh, it's time to get real. Oh, yeah. It's a new experience. Reality, spirituality. Yeah, keep your ears open for this one now. Reality, spirituality. You got a question for RLN? Reality, spirituality. Yeah, it's time to get some answers, baby. Reality, spirituality. Oh, now we get real. Get real.